Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to the Village of Mineola. I'm Paul Pereira, the Village Mayor. We have the rest of our board here. We have Deputy Mayor Sartori. We have Trustees Clark, Casado, and Solosky here as well. We have our Village Clerk, Brian Rivera, and we have our Deputy Village Clerk who's working in the camera room. So you're not here to see me, but I do want to tell you that a couple of months ago, we had one of these community forums, and the Nassau County Police Department, the 3rd Precinct, the inspector who is not here this evening, we have the deputy inspector, along with some of the POP officers, reached out to us if we wanted to do another community forum, and we'll never say no. We will continue to welcome the police department here to inform us, to educate us, and also to give our residents an opportunity to ask questions. You know, I got some correspondence about publicizing these community forums more. I really have to tell you, I don't know what more we can do. We put it on social media. We sent it out on an email blast. We sent it out on a text blast. We mentioned it here at our meetings. It was covered in the local newspaper last week. So if people don't show up, then there's really, short of knocking on their door, there's not much more we can do, but we will continue to do that. And if there's ways to improve the communication, we will do that. Having said that, my normal pitch, if you're not yet on our email system, text system, social media, please sign up for those, because there's a lot of valuable information that comes with being part of that. Some of it can be as mundane as when is our next concert in the park, or it can be a storm to get your cars off the street, or it can be informational things like this for the community forum. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Deputy Inspector Crawford from the Nassau County Police Department 3rd Precinct, who is going to then introduce the 2 POP officers who are here with us this evening. And I know that they have a bunch of stuff that you can take home, but if you do ask a question, we're having this recorded so that it will play on Channel 18, so those people that cannot be here this evening can hear it and get the same information that you're getting. We ask that you ask your question, and then one of the officers will repeat the question into the microphone so that people at home can hear it, and then they will answer the question, okay? Thank you. Deputy Inspector?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jimmy Crawford. I'm one of the precinct commanders. I'm going to be pretty brief in what I say, but I'm going to open it to questions. I think that's the more important thing, is what your concerns are. Right now, it's not even, it's Mineola specific, but we're seeing a precinct-wide, county-wide, statewide. We're seeing a lot of auto-related crimes. Residential burglaries is kind of, what our concerns are. And those are things that we can ask, we can get help from you guys in doing. And that's by securing, locking your cars at night, locking your cars all the time, and removing the key fobs. 99% of our stolen cars are from keys that are left in the vehicle. So, we can all play a positive role in correcting this problem. The other is residential burglaries, and it's a tough thing, but there are some steps we can take to secure your homes a little bit better and provide a little extra security. And I'm just going to read off a couple that we put together. It's lock all doors, even on the windows on the upper floors. Sliding glass doors should be secured with wood blocking. Don't rely on the little locks that are on it. Same thing with casement windows that crank out. They're easily opened. The fire department can tell you that's how a lot of times they get into these buildings. That's the easiest path in. Make sure your alarms are up to date with the newer 3G technology. That was what powered most alarms up until about 6-7 months ago. And all these alarm systems, a majority of them went offline, and they needed to be upgraded. So if you do have an alarm system, it's worth checking with your provider to make sure you still have coverage. Ring doorbells and floodlights are always helpful as a deterrent, and also helps us if there's a crime that does occur in the area. Park cars in the driveway, even if you're away. If you can get a neighbor that has an extra car, park the car in the driveway. Just always give that appearance that somebody's home. Bring in newspapers and garbage cans as soon as possible. And the one standout from the detective sergeant that does countywide burglaries. These are He's part of the pattern squad that deals with that, and it's leaving the TV on and leaving more than one light on. He said, believe it or not, is one of the most powerful deterrents. So he says, you leave one light on, he's like everyone knows you're not home. So just some food for thought. If you have a safe in your house, recommend bolting it down and securing it in an area outside of the master bedroom or suite. Generally, that's where a burglar will go. They'll go right to the master bedroom, and it just disrupts them. So, and with the stolen cars, just locking the doors, and we've had some notable cases where they've taken some vehicles from gas stations while people are pumping the gas. With that, you need to, we need to push out the message, and we have. These guys have been great. They've put out, I think, something like 65 flyers at different gas stations throughout the third. It's important to shut your car off. It's actually law. You're supposed to not have it on when you're fueling. Take the keys out and lock the car. Keep the key on your person, because what they're doing is they're sneaking up and hopping in the car and trying to pull away. We actually had I'm sure most of you heard about the one with the dog that was thrown from the car right here. And we've made some positive progress on that case, and we're hopeful that you'll see an arrest shortly. So, I'll open it to questions.
The one question I had was, is there any reason why that particular gas station seems to be targeted? Because it's kind of in the heart of the village, not on the outskirts of the village yet. It was hit twice in pretty quick succession. And I remember going back years, a couple of years ago, somebody broke into it and stole like cigarettes or something from the little booth. So has there been any, do we think it's an inside job, or why do they pick that station in particular? There aren't cameras, although this one did have a camera.
It did. We don't think there's any discernible reason why that's been, had multiple occurrences. Yes, ma'am?
I have a theory regarding that, because I was wondering, if you're coming east to west on Jericho Turnpike, that gas station is set back, the railroad trestle is going by, so it's not all that visible until you're right on top of it, I think. It's kind of, it's tucked in a corner. I would never ever go to the back pumps at that place behind it, so that's my theory. But anyway, sorry.
No problem. Anybody else?
I have a question regarding the thefts, the auto thefts that you've seen an uptick, and specifically from Mineola. Can you tell us what that uptick has been? Because like on our block, we had a catalytic converter stolen not too long ago. I just heard from a friend of mine that lives by the school that they mentioned theirs was stolen also. So when you say there's been an uptick, obviously it's countywide. What has it been over the past couple of months here in Mineola? I don't know if you could share that information.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, indeed, we did have an uptick between 2021 and 2022. Fortunately, at the end of 2022, we made several arrests. We made an arrest locally in Long Beach, which seems to have really stopped it becoming an issue still. So, yeah, the numbers weren't good. But we've seen it drop off almost entirely at this point. So.
And is that a change in strategy, or is that just the arrest you think it is?
I think it's they had, we try to cut the head off the snake. We're trying to find the guy that's coming out and just taking the catalytic converter. He's making $200 on it. He's just an opportunist at that point. So, asset forfeiture unit, they investigated it, and they got down to the people who were actually breaking them open, selling the precious metals and shipping them out of state, and took all their assets, took their cars, took their houses, and kind of sends the message. Yep.
A lot of these criminals, they're not from Nassau County, they're not from Suffolk, they're all from New Jersey, from the city, so they come out here. But that's the thing, and that's what makes it more difficult, but it doesn't stop us. We're still making arrests. We're making progress.
Yes, so there's a small shopping plaza on Jericho and Harris, the TD parking lot bank.
Mm-hmm.
Luigi's a lot. I'm afraid that one of these days, these kids, I know they're young, they don't think, but is there any way you guys can maybe, or have you patrol it, just tell the kids be careful, any way of taking care of that for us?
Is it, the question is, there's a concern with, is it bicycles, sir?
Yeah.
Bicycles at the TD Bank on Jericho.
It's a good, clean hangout, a lot of kids, but I think the guys do, because there's a bunch of girls, young girls, one of them is my granddaughter, I think they try to impress the girls, they're doing wheelies in through the window, and I'm just afraid that they're gonna get clipped.
Is there a time of day that, in particular, that,
It's like after school, you know?
okay,
Yeah, maybe like, 3 to 6 or 7.
all right, we can,
Yeah, you don't have to scream
Take care of
and
that.
yell, but just, hey, because I'm afraid someone's gonna get clipped.
There's actually, and I brought this up last time, this exact issue last time at the community forum, and this is a thing now. They literally play chicken with cars, and they challenge each other who can be the last one to move. So not only are they in the parking lot, that particular parking lot is a problem because it's near the school, and that's what they do. But I've seen them en masse down Mineola Boulevard during traffic, in and out of cars, and literally holding back cars from passing them as they are like, a bunch of, like motorcycles, except they are bicycles. So it definitely is it's an accident waiting to happen for sure. I don't think it's just here. There's this whole like bike life
swerving
trend.
thing, they call it, yeah.
Swerving, exactly. And it definitely maybe behooves an educational component at the schools, maybe catching these guys,
Maybe we could collaborate with the school, that might actually be,
We can set a date on it, but it's gonna be January that we set it.
And with that in mind, so if I have one of these kids, I'm obviously at fault, so what would happen to me? I mean, these guys are reckless, and yet,
well, each accident's investigated, and it doesn't necessarily because you hit a cyclist means that you're gonna be at fault. There's contributing factors that would be taken into account.
If there's a large group of kids riding bikes in the middle of the street, feel free to call 911, put it over the radio. This week, we can get us down there, we can get cops down there, helps us build a pattern. And there are things that we can do, I personally, if they're in the street, I can video them, find out who they are, talk to their parents. There's lots of things that we can do, to try to avoid this. We've had issues like this in other parts of the precinct that we were able to take care of. Because they're kids, and they're doing what they're doing, but
and it's gonna be fun, I mean, it's not that, I don't want you to chase them away, I mean, it's,
well, they need to obey the rules.
yeah,
Of the
okay.
road too, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Since the hospital changed to NYU Langone, I noticed a change in the pattern there. They leave at certain times of the day a back gate open that goes on to DeMott Street. And I'm not sure who's parking their car in that parking lot, whether there's attendants who are moving the cars. They're high-end cars. That's why I thought it might have been the doctor's parking lot. But they are speeding down DeMott Street, going through the 3 stop signs every day, because I walk my dog at a time of day that now.
Is it a shift change, you think, or is it,
It's usually like between 2 and 4 o'clock, so I.
it's not the valets from the actual main part of the building?
I'm not sure. As I said, they are high-end cars, and it could be the valet, because I also see them parking some of their cars in the vacant hospital-owned houses around there, and they're shifting things around.
Okay.
But-
We can boost enforcement over in the area, but in addition to that, I was saying to Paul earlier, we meet with the leadership of Winthrop on a pretty regular basis, so we could bring that concern to them as well.
Kids coming home from school now, people walking, to and from in that area. It's a time of day that it's busy, even though it's a back road.
Okay. I promise, I'm gonna say the question the next time. Yeah.
So in terms of the gate, they did ask us to keep the gate open for certain things, but I will have the building department, because there was some construction, some minor things that they were doing there, and they may have just gotten used to it and now just kept it open.
And
So,
people don't mind it being open.
Well, but it's actually not supposed to be open. Um,
It's like going through there.
Right,
having to
go all the way around. But we'll double check that. But one of the things that I also told the deputy inspector is that next week, the two of us are going to meet with the MTA police chief to talk about the train station and MTA presence at the train station. I have high hopes that it will be a productive meeting, but he called for the meeting, so that's great. That's a good sign that the MTA is finally committed to not only using Mineola for all the benefits of its location and its train station, but also that we get in return the security that we deserve, that we pay for, and frankly, that has been lacking. Because although, of course, the Nassau County Police Department will always show up if there's any danger, but technically the platforms are the responsibility of the MTA police. I mean, again, obviously, if there's a crime that is being committed on a platform, the Nassau County Police aren't just going to stand there, they're going to respond. But my continued kind of mantra has been that we want a presence there. We want a presence of the MTA police. So I'm going to meet with the hospital as well. We're going to meet with the MTA police. We've kept, I have to say this, you know, I said it last time, in my time on the board, we have not had a better relationship with the 3rd Precinct than we do now in terms of communication, getting back to me, calling me, texting me when events happen. When this event happened here at the gas station, I knew about it right away. That had not always been the case, but with the deputy inspector and the inspector and the 4 pop cops that we have, which is a great program, the lines of communication have certainly been much, much better. Again, to reiterate, number 1, call 911 if you see anything. Number 2, reach out to the village, because then we can always communicate. If it's an issue that's not an emergency, or if it's something that's an ongoing concern, where we can then say, hey, can you put some more resources down at this end of the village, DeMott, or whatever it is. And sometimes you'll find that simply committing some resources for a week or 2 changes the whole pattern, and people kind of get used to it, and they find other ways. We're working on all of these kind of multi-front approach to dealing with that, and frankly, to give the Nassau County Police Department support as well. They can't be everywhere, they can't see everything, that's why they need us, that's why we need the MTA, that's why we need NYU Langone Security as well, because they have a responsibility, that's why we need the schools, and we all have to be partners in this.
Thank you.
That doesn't mean nobody, you can ask.
Yeah. Anybody? Just to build on what the mayor said, you know your streets better than anybody, and you know what belongs there and what doesn't belong. If you see something, you know, the saying, you know, do something. If, you know, we're seeing a lot of times these residential burglaries, the perpetrators are actually using cars with paper plates on it. So, you know, you drive down Jericho Turnpike, unfortunately, you see a handful of them. But if you see one on your side street, it's suspicious. You know, your neighbor's not transporting cars from Jersey. Like, make a 911 call. I have no problem that if we can stop the person, if we stop them 2 or 3 times in a row, and they're, you know, here one day and they're up in Alverson doing the same thing the next day, you know, it gives us the tools to go, well, this guy was in the area, what was he doing there? So.
Regarding the paper plates, I've been noticing a lot of plates as of late that, they kind of billowed the color off the plate so you can't read.
A New York plate?
Well, yes, I think they were, yeah.
There's a series of New York plates, I believe they start with E, that have an issue with them. And the state is requiring the people, if you renew your registration,
Yeah.
you keep on renewing. To get a new plate, you actually have to spend, I think it's like another $150. So people don't, you know, they're not gonna, they feel like the plate should be correct to begin with. So that's part of it. I don't think people are actually intentionally damaging their
What I
plates.
was noticing, I kind of felt, you know, and maybe it's because they go through tolls and they don't want to pay, but they were not, it wasn't a beginning initial letter or number, it was in the center. So I wasn't sure, maybe they're just trying to avoid tolls, or is that part of this, you know, like along the lines of the paper plates?
No, they're defective.
If there's a defective yeah, there's a defective line of plates out there in New York.
That are missing like 3 numbers, not that they're missing, but that they scrape the paint off so that
Yes.
they can't
The
read.
seal is coming loose.
The seal, the
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
it's,
and then that legible.
Okay, thank you.
you guys want to add anything? They do, that's their job. This is Officer McGuire, one of our pop cops.
Hello, everyone. A lot of familiar faces from last time, so it's good to see you again. Thanks for coming out. Actually, there's a few of you I want to speak to. Thank you. Afterwards, so please see me. I'm curious about updates given ongoing conditions. So I'm one of the pop officers. As he was saying, there's 4 pop officers in the Nassau County Police 3rd Precinct. This is Officer Jesse Cooper. He's got about 20 years of police experience. He's our pop Yoda. We look to him for everything. Just in regards to some of the things to touch upon, the gas stations has become a popular thing that really hit home. It was made its way in the news. I think a lot of people are pet lovers, and they see that kind of thing added on top of it, and it's the cherry on top of the sundae, you know. So that's something of great concern. As he was saying, there's about 60 gas stations in the 3rd Precinct, and we put flyers all over all of them, even the full-serve ones. So some concerns with them are, and this is kind of something that's usually a trained eye, but I guess you can kind of, if you just think about it, if you look at a gas station, you're gonna see gas stations that are full-serve. You're gonna see gas stations that have mechanic bays. You're gonna see gas stations where it's just a solo booth. If you just think about it, which one would you hit if you were a criminal, you know? So, I mean, I don't wanna say don't go to this place or that place, but if you're curious about, you know, what motivates them to choose a certain place, typically there's a reason. I'm not saying that the other places are immune to this, but yeah, usually water flows in the easiest direction, you know? So just something to keep in mind. But on top of that, no matter where you are, just keep in mind proper gas pump etiquette. They've always said, turn off your cars, but including turning off your car, you gotta have to take your keys with you. Keep that in your pocket. Don't leave that in the car because they can just start the car back up and take it away. And our technology has become our best friend and our greatest weakness. So just keep that in mind. Also with the stolen vehicles, as you were saying, the keys in the car, that's a huge thing. As you were saying, an incredible portion of our stolen vehicles are with the keys in the car. But as some of the luxury cars have, I think we mentioned this last time, the mirrors go in on the luxury vehicles. I'm sure some of you might have those. And that's something that the criminals are obviously aware of. They're aware of all the current trends. So they can see a car and they go, I know that Lexus, you know, the mirrors would go in if it's locked, you know, and it's obviously the keys are probably in there. So they check that out. But sometimes they don't want to wait and check cars at night anymore, so they go to gas pumps. So that seems to be the popular thing, you know, nobody's got time, they want to sleep at night, so they go out during the day and do their thing. So we got to be aware at all times of day and night. Another thing, it's burglary season. So as it gets cold and it gets dark early, so burglaries go up. And as he was saying, we got to target harden everywhere. So this includes your homes. So the Ring doorbells are one of our best friends. Lighting, broken window theory. So if you got something going on with your house, doesn't look great, whether something's a little disheveled, maybe a little coat of paint, or maybe a few nails and a new 2x4, we can make that place look a little bit better, because if it's not being kept up, people are aware of that, you know, and then they kind of target that. And they don't even think about that one, that just happens. There's studies on it. So these things are something to keep in mind. Catalytic converters, as he was saying, I think we've had some great progress in that area. And I just want to say our inspector and deputy inspector are fantastic with these current trends. They're all over it. They're all on top of us to get it out there, and then we're all on top of it to get it out. And I just want to say that the 3rd Precinct has been trying very hard to crush these things, because Nassau County has been getting hit hard. So is Suffolk County. The whole island is just getting hit hard on these current crime trends that are coming, as Officer Cooper was saying, from in the city or out of state. So we don't want to be a target. We got to target hard in the whole island. But as I was saying, the catalytic converters, I think we said this last time, but repetition's how we learn, so I'll repeat it. We need you to be our eyes and ears out there. This is a very, very quick crime. They typically find a car that they want to target during the day. They'll drive around, find a good street that maybe has a few of their target vehicles. Hondas are a big target. I don't know why, it's probably just the way it's built and they're just comfortable with cutting it out of Hondas, but it seems to be a high target vehicle. So they'll find a street that has a whole lot of these targets. They'll find it during the day. They'll come back at night, in the middle of the night, with their crew. One guy will stay in the car, one guy will go under the car, 2 cuts, then the catalytic converter's out. So what you're gonna hear is the sound of cutting metal. So that's pretty obvious, right? It's a pretty unique sound. You're probably gonna spring up in the middle of the night unless you have a really loud sound machine. But that's what you're gonna hear. What you're gonna see, typically, is a vehicle that's double parked in the middle of the street. They're just gonna be sitting in the middle of the street, kinda weird. That's not normal, especially at 3 in the morning. So you're gonna see that. So if you see the combination of those 2 things, please call us immediately. These cars tend to flee on us, but we have caught them in the past and we'll continue to try. So please let us know, and the quicker you get to us, the quicker our response and the higher our chance of catching these criminals. So we appreciate all of your help. Officer Cooper, did you want to add anything?
Absolutely. So Officer McGuire pretty much stole all my material, but that's all right, he's allowed to. Just a couple of things, especially with 911. How many people here have called 911? All right, most everybody. A lot of questions that we get and concerns we get when people call 911 is that, listen, it's not an emergency. I don't want to call 911. I don't want to bother the police. Please don't ever think that, okay? If you see a suspicious vehicle out there in your neighborhood, all right, you guys, you are eyes and ears, okay? That call will be put in a queue so that the more urgent response calls that are required, the police will go to those first. The higher priority calls, the police will go to that first, okay? And then if we have another call for a report, or if we have another call for a suspicious vehicle, we'll respond to that. But don't worry about calling 911 for a non-emergency. That's what it's there for. A lot of people call the front desk at the precinct, which is okay, but I gotta tell you, there's usually 2 people manning that desk, and that phone's ringing all the time, so you may not get through. So the easiest way to do it, really, is to call 911. This way it gets in the system, and the 911 operator, the dispatch will put it out.
I just want to build on that real quick. When you call 911, it's recorded. So if you're reporting something that's urgent and you can blurt out a plate, even when before the actual person picks up, it's all being recorded. When you hear the ringing noises, that's actually already recorded. So you start talking, it memorializes what's going on. So it gives us the tool. You scream out a license plate, the odds of remembering that during a time of crisis is going to be difficult. So
Absolutely.
And we don't have those capabilities at the station house. It's not being recorded. So.
Right, and if you want to remain anonymous, you can remain anonymous. We're not going to go knocking on someone's door and say, by the way, Mrs. Smith called us to report that you're making too much music or noise over here. We don't do that, okay? If you want to remain anonymous, you will remain anonymous, all right? Anybody here own a business or a part of a business? All right, we just want to make sure with the businesses, okay, that they lock and secure their windows at night, just like the houses, especially with the cash registers. Leave them empty, and leave them open. And if you're a business owner, okay, don't take the same way home every day, because we're finding that a lot of these criminals are following, they're casing. They're trying to find out where the business owners live because they believe they have cash in the house. So take a different way home, all right? Don't follow the same routine, all right? Travel where it's well lit, park where it's well lit, things like that. And one last thing I just want to mention, as it comes to IRS and tax time now, we want to make sure that we're not getting scammed by the IRS, so I'm just going to go over these tips again real quick. Educate yourself on how scammers operate, okay? We don't want anybody to be a victim of an IRS scam. The IRS will never call, okay? They will always send you a letter if you need to pay them for something. They communicate by mail. They never call. They're not going to send someone to your house to arrest you, all right? If you're going to have any problems with the IRS, you'll find that your bank account's frozen, and that'll be it, okay? They're not coming to arrest you, all right? Scammers state that victims owe money to the IRS, and they also threaten legal action over the phone. And what they do is they put you in a state of fear. And once you're in that state of fear, they got you, because you're going to pretty much do anything. And it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. Once they get you in that state of fear, it's very difficult to calm down and say, hey, wait a minute, I think I'm being scammed. So once they got you in that state of fear, that's when they're going to try to get information from you. They're going to try to get you to run to the store and buy gift cards to pay your bill, okay? Green Dot, Amazon gift cards, Home Depot gift cards, whatever it may be. I've seen it where they've even sent an Uber or a taxi to a victim's house to pick them up and take them to the store so they can buy gift cards. So they will not stop. Once they have you on the phone, they will continue. So talk to your parents and our seniors in the community. Let them know that the IRS will not call them, okay? They demand fast payment. Once they got you on the phone, they want you to make that payment really fast, all right? If you receive a tax scam or you feel you're a victim of one, do not comply. Call 911, okay? Verify, verify, verify. If you think it's a family member that's in trouble, it's another scam that's out there, they pose as family members, hang up, and then call that family member. Verify that it's a family member that's trying to say that they're in trouble, okay? So that's all I wanted to go over. Thank you guys for coming out in the rain. Appreciate it. We have all these flyers and things we've talked about. They're all right here for you guys to take.
Just give one last opportunity for questions. Anybody? Yes, sir.
I'm still doing it, but I hear there's a new scam now, break into cars, they duct tape the window and pull them down. Is that still?
To break into the car, you're saying? I haven't seen that. Have you?
I'm just
you-
wondering
I-
if that works just with electric windows, with the crank you probably can't, but, yeah, they duct tape the window. It happened to me. I got into my car next day and it was still locked, everything is, but that, actually my son told me that's how they do it. They duct tape the window and for some reason they pull it down and they pull it back up, take the tape off, and nothing else.
Okay. I haven't seen that in any of the reports, so.
Because I don't know how there's nothing you can do to prevent that, because they get the window down, they get the window down.
It just goes back on, it's not worth leaving valuables in the car at all, so. Yes, ma'am?
What do you think is like the biggest contributing factor to the robberies and crimes starting to go up in New York? Like, really quick, my boyfriend's theory is the deliveries. I use Amazon, and everybody likes their like next day delivery and stuff like that, FedEx. Now, we have, Mr. Shelby, right, and I believe he has to be licensed or he has to be allowed to come into the village. Would having only specific delivery people come into the village, and again, not everybody might like that because they might not get their next day delivery, but would that help decrease it? Because we don't know all the people that come to deliver, right? Sometimes you have random people that are not in the Amazon trucks come deliver packages, and they can be, looking around, seeing what's going on, like.
I just had this happen to me last week at my house,
Yeah,
so.
they could be casing neighborhoods.
Just to paraphrase her question. It was a long, I can't remember that whole thing. But do we see anything that's, do we think delivery drivers, the uptick in a lot of deliveries in the area, bringing criminal elements into the neighborhood? And in my opinion, I don't think that's the case. I think it falls back on lighter sentencing. There's less consequences for crime, and they're not being inconvenienced where they'd be locked up and spend time. I think that's really what's driving it. But once again, if you have an Amazon delivery that goes wrong with somebody that's not a uniformed employee, I just had this myself. My wife called Amazon, made the report. I made a police report with my precinct. I find stuff like that suspicious. I called 911.
So regarding that, I just know for a fact that Amazon drivers do pick up extra hours driving their own vehicles, so I'm not sure.
That's not necessarily Amazon
Well,
regular.
truck
So apparently what I was told last week is you can sign up on the app and you take your driver's license or some type of ID, you go down to one of these sorting facilities and it's as easy as you swipe your ID and they give you 5 packages. And you go on your phone and the app tells you where to go.
Okay, because I do know somebody that drives for a
Mm-hmm.
But if he wants to pick up some extra money, like.
It's open to anybody. That's,
Yeah,
that's,
so, okay, but thank you, I didn't know that part that you just said.
yep.
I just have a few tips in regards. to
Yeah,
that.
go ahead.
Just a few tips in regards to the packages and the delivery. You can always request that a package be delivered to your place of business so that you're there to pick it up. You could also request to have it delivered to your backyard or a certain place. And then there's also, you ever see those Amazon lockers at 7-Eleven? You can have it delivered there, and I think they give you a key code or something on your phone so you can access that and get your package that way. So for something extremely valuable that we're worried about receiving, those are some tips that you can do to help preserve and make sure you get your package. But, you know, we do have package larcenies. We call them porch pirates. They're out there, all right? But those are some tips.
Just curious, in Nassau County, has there been a high incidence of the skimming of the credit cards? I was just wondering, I haven't heard a lot, so I just wanted to know.
So the question is, in Nassau County, is there credit card skimming becoming an issue? It's not a profound issue at this moment, but we definitely, I think we had two recently at a Walmart. Was it? I believe it was Walmart in East Meadow. It's usually you see it upticks and then it drops off, and most of the time they do get caught. But you know, some tips on that is when you go in and you go to use the machine, it's usually something that's double-sided taped onto the card reader. So giving the thing a good shake generally will dislodge the object. Also, for them to utilize it, they take your card information, but they also need your PIN. And what they do is they install some type of camera. So even when there's nobody around in that store, it's always good to put your hand over your other hand that's typing in your PIN. And that gives them, you know, that breaks the chain. They can't use it then.
It's just good to know what percentage is low right now. In Nassau County, you're saying. There hasn't been-
Relatively, yeah. Anybody? All right, turn it back over to you.
Okay, so actually, as the deputy inspector mentioned something, just reminded me, 2 weeks ago, I was actually out shopping with my wife, and my son called me, said, "Dad, I see this strange guy with a crowbar walking down the street," and he went into a backyard, and he came back, and so he saw something that he was walking to 7-Eleven to go get a drink, and he saw something that was out of place, and so I called 911. Someone came to my house, an officer from the 3rd Precinct, and he went and investigated. Turns out it was an innocent guy who was working at a neighbor's house down the street, but he was out of place. He looked a little disheveled, and actually the neighbor's Ring camera caught him going into the backyard, speaking to the homeowner. So it was all on the up and up, but you never know. He didn't belong in the neighborhood. My son noticed that he looked, you know, like he was a little disheveled, and he just knew enough to call me and to ask, and I did exactly as what was said here. It was 5-10 minutes, and it was all straightened out, and it was all figured out. But next time it may not be so innocent. So it's literally that simple. Same thing with these young kids on bicycles. We've also had issues with egging houses, you know, kids doing what they've done forever, right? But, you know, the consequences, when something happens, what kids need to understand is that they're final sometimes. You know, when you get hit on a bicycle without a helmet by, you know, a 5,000-pound vehicle, that's not, you know, you're not going to win. Or, you know, hitting the wrong house with an egg or doing the wrong thing to the wrong person can certainly not end up well for you. So again, if you see something that's out of place, just call 911. That's what they are here for. And I will also say this, that just today, someone who works in the school, at Mineola Schools with me, who's an aide who lives in Wilston Park, and she was talking about this community forum and whether she should come or not. And she said, you know, I walk my dog at 2 in the morning, and I never walk without my dog because I'm afraid. And she made a point of saying at that time, because I'm not up at 2 in the morning, she said, I see police cars all the time, up and down the streets. And so it's really good to hear, and I said, I'm gonna make sure that they know that. So she's walking her dog like around Willis Avenue and just north of Hillside Avenue, and she says at that time, you definitely notice a police presence. So when we're sleeping, they're out there, they can't be everywhere, but if you hear something or see something, my wife thinks I'm paranoid sometimes because I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, what was that? But, you know, it doesn't hurt to be safe and not sorry, okay? And again, if anyone has any more questions, I'm sure that the officers will stay behind. We'll stay behind. The village obviously will always act to protect our residents, protect our property, protect our quality of life. This is an ongoing dialogue. This is not only a Nassau County problem. You know, sometimes it's like a balloon. If they push things down in Queens or Manhattan at Penn Station, something goes up here. If the laws in Albany are tightened, we see a reaction. If they are loosened, we see a reaction. So even beyond me, us, and this village board, we have state representatives. You know, we don't have the authority locally to make bail laws and crime laws and all of that, and neither does the police department. But your state representatives do, the governor does, and you know what they hate? Phone calls, emails, and visiting their field offices. I know that we happen to have our local representatives are very much, because they are from our neighborhood, they want to protect our quality of life. So I know that they agree with us on that. I'm actually meeting tomorrow with both of our state senators, Senator Thomas and Senator Martins, and we're meeting with a group of senators from the 7th Senatorial District. It's something that's unrelated to this, but in a way related. If you heard the governor's State of the State address, she's talking about this housing compact where we can make ADUs, which is auxiliary dwelling units, so people can rent out their garages and their basements and their attics, and to create more housing. This is going to solve the housing crisis, among other things, to facilitate dividing lots and being able to build more on smaller lots. So pay attention, and you may think, what does that have to do with crime? Well, the more people that come into an area, the more people from a certain socioeconomic status, certainly we don't want that in our neighborhood. You know, we chose to live in a suburban neighborhood for a suburban quality of life for a reason. And that's what we expect. So that's not going to happen tomorrow. That's not going to happen next year. And I'm certainly not equating that to any, you know, catalytic converter thefts or anything like that. But it goes beyond this. It goes beyond what we can do at the local level. And I certainly think that the deputy inspector is absolutely right that until we get tougher on crime, and then what you see, if you see some of these are kids. 16, 17 years old, and they know that they will not get in trouble. The ringleader's not a kid, right? He's sitting back with a nice car, nice house, but he's sending out these kids who, even if they are caught, what's going to happen to them? Nothing.
We've had something in New York, they have this legislation called Raise the Age.
Right.
So now children, what does it change to now? You have to be almost 18 years old to even
Right.
be 16, 17. Unless it's
Right,
heinous.
right.
Where 16 used to be the cutoff. But we're seeing, you know, some of these crimes that we're all familiar with around here, it's 15-year-old kids doing it.
And they know that nothing will happen to them, and the adults who are putting them up to this know that if they do it, if the 15-year-old does it and gets caught, that nothing will happen. So again, this is a societal problem. It is a socioeconomic problem. It is a problem that is not easily solvable, but know that the village, the police department, and now bringing in the MTA and NYU, hopefully we'll be able to minimize any of this uptick, as we've called it. So I think the lesson from tonight is if you see something, say something, call 911. Don't be afraid to do that. And if there's an issue about an ongoing thing, you know, car speeding, you know, it doesn't always have to be about thefts and burglaries, and it could be something as simple as they race down my block all the time. You know, Wilson Boulevard, where Trustee Clark lives, is a cut through. Foch Boulevard is a cut through. Burkhardt is a cut through. You see people blowing stop signs. You see people speeding. Let us know. We let the police department know, and they park a car there for a couple of days, and once these guys get a couple of $150 tickets, they'll learn, and they'll slow down. Another trick that I've been told is if you have the Waze app on your phone, what you do is on your phone you put down that there's a police car in front of your house, and then when they are using Waze, it shows up on their Waze that there's a police car in front of your house, and they're going to slow down. It will take several cars, because you remember you get that warning, still there, not there, still there, not there. So it takes a couple of cars to say not there for the police car to disappear. So if you're on one of those streets, just randomly put, yep, police here. Still there, still there, still there, still there, still there, omnipresent. So those little tricks, but most of all, it's just being aware, as the deputy inspector said, nobody knows this neighborhood better than we do, than you do. You know who belongs there, you know who doesn't belong there. I do think, I mean, anecdotally, that the increase in Uber drivers and Amazon and DoorDash and all those things, it has to have some kind of effect on exposure and exposing people, because it may not be that guy, but that guy may go back to somebody else and say, you know, I always deliver to this place, and there's, you know, no one ever home, or, you know, it's really easy. They have the door open, and then that guy may go and do something. So just be smart. You know, the convenience of all the modern things that we do sometimes is our worst enemy. So just be aware, be smart. Not that we should always think the worst in people, but, you know, believe but verify, right? Okay. On behalf of the residents in the village, we want to thank you. One more question.
Just one quick question. I can't remember how many weeks ago it was that a helicopter was overhead that seemed quite a lot lower than normal. And a while later, we found out there was a robbery. So I'm just wondering, if I have a situation like that where, you know, the windows are vibrating, can I call and find out if it's, you're looking for a criminal as opposed to there was an accident on the northern state? So that I can get my fears out of the way if it's an accident on the northern state.
So the question is, if you hear a helicopter, you see a large police response,
I didn't see anything.
you heard it and you wanted to know, my recommendation would be call, that's something you can call the station house for. Yeah.
And that was, in fact, the day of the robbery here at the gas station. The only other time that I could remember. It would be something like that. You know, the last place I would tell you to go is Facebook, right? Because then everyone has a lot of theories. The first place to go is to the source, which would be to call in the station house. And in that regard, again, the inspector did reach out to me and did say, hey, you know, you may get some phone calls, this just happened, this is what's going on. So obviously, I don't think that it's something that you can publicize, but if that's happening, there's obviously a reason, either a major accident or I know a couple of months ago there was that attack by the dog up in Albertson, and that, you know, it may be like a medevac situation, but yeah, normally, obviously, they wouldn't be flying that low unless there's a reason for it.
Just want to add one more thing to that. If you do hear a helicopter, you see a large police response. If it's something that's, most of the time, it's 99% of the time, there's no danger to anybody. There's no danger to the public. You know, we have applications in place. We have an ability to push out text messages and get the message out through the news. So if there was truly like a threat to public safety, within minutes, that message would be pushed out by the police department. And we're lucky we have a police commissioner that we do. Commissioner Ryder, he has no problem getting out there and telling everybody what's going on and keeping everybody informed. And he's there with us. He's standing shoulder to shoulder with me. So, but that's pretty much it.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. And you know, especially no disrespect to the deputy inspector, but you know, the POP officers are really the front line with the community, the front line with the schools. They are in the schools probably weekly, if not more often. Not always for bad reasons, you know, but just keeping that line of communication open. You know, testing our lockdown procedures, our lockout procedures, and in my career, there's been once or twice where there may have been an event. I remember there was an event down in Rockville Center, and like schools went into lockdown because there was some major event. So the communication is pretty good and pretty quick. So again, and they know the players, they know the hot spots, they know the kids and young adults and the places that are problematic. And I will say that we had a business here in the village that was causing some problems, and the police department was all over it, and they are no longer in business. So, and they've been very responsive. I know that they also do spot checks in terms of alcohol and vaping and things like that, where they'll send in young adults to, make sure that everyone's complying with the law. We do the same thing from our building department perspective to make sure that we have laws, what can and cannot be sold in certain areas of the village when it comes to vape products and tobacco products and things of that nature. So we make sure that they're complying in that way, and they make sure that they're complying with New York State law in terms of age, because that certainly is also a big concern for our youth today, is how easy it is to get your hands on things that are not good for you. And so they consistently do an education part of it, but also an enforcement part of it. And we did have last week or 2 weeks ago was Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. So I want you to know that not just on that day, every day we appreciate what you do, and we thank you for what you do, and thank you for taking the time out to be here with us this evening. Thank you. And feel free to grab some of these flyers on your way out, okay? And thank you all for coming down.